Commissioner Cush. Present. Commissioner Piercy.
Here.
Commissioner P.
Here.
Commissioner James.
Here.
Commissioner Dodd.
Here.
Commissioner Boyd. Chairman Johnson. Here. Thank you.
Okay, we'll approve the minutes from the last committee meeting.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. I did read the minutes and I found them in order without objection. I make a motion for their approval.
We have a motion. Second. Favor? Aye. All opposed? Public comments? Building codes report. Tanya Bell.
Good evening, Commissioners. Tanya Bale, Building Codes Director, and Merry Christmas. I know it's a little early, but I won't see you till after Christmas again. So, all right. Start with the building permit summary report for November. We issued a total of 310 building permits in November. 37 of those were single-family dwellings, down a little bit from this time last year, and down a little bit from last month also. For a total revenue collected of $175,207.20. Total inspections completed, 1,626. Zoning inspections completed, 166, with total miles driven, 11,088. If nobody has any questions, I'll move on. Zoning enforcement, like I mentioned, we had 166 inspections last month. School facilities tax, we collected 163,871. 120,000 of that and some change was an apartment complex that in the city of Murfreesboro that finished up and paid the second half of their tax due, and $1,500 in development tax. And that concludes my report.
We have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor? All opposed? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Now we have the Highway Department, Superintendent Greg Brooks. Welcome.
Commissioners. So tonight I'm here to bring you our new road book, which is an annual update, and then also a drainage easement book. My thought is both of those can go at the same time, and then we have a speed limit change. So, like I said, the drainage easement book and the road book should have been in your boxes. I see most already. The road book didn't change a whole lot. I think it's about maybe a couple miles different than the last one, and it always changes a little bit. Some years we pick up a mile or two. Some years we lose a mile or two. Obviously, those miles that we lose are from annexations from municipalities, whether it be Murfreesboro, City of Smyrna, Town of Smyrna, or City of Eagleville. And then typically all of our new ones are subdivisions that we take in over time. So not a lot of changes. And then our drainage easement book, some of you may or may not have seen that. Commissioner James pointed out that he hasn't seen one of those since he's been here, but it's been about 5 years since we updated that drainage easement book. There haven't been any real significant changes to it in quite some time, so the printing cost just doesn't justify reprinting that every year. So that's why you're seeing that this year. So this is it's here to, for your, it passed, all this happened at the road board meeting yesterday morning, and then it'll move on from here to the full commission. I also have, you should have a copy of a speed limit posting for a road out, Rural McKnight Road. We have decided to lower the speed limit to 35 miles per hour. And that, when we get these requests for speed limit changes, we typically send those from the road board to the sheriff's department for a recommendation. And we have that recommendation back from the sheriff's department, and they recommended 35 miles per hour based on, the terrain and driveway connections and that type of thing. So we're going to lower that speed limit out there to 35 miles an hour. Currently, it is not posted, so it won't, Well, in theory, yes. I think that is correct. That's what I've been told. However, I'll go back to many years ago when I took my test to get my driver's license. One of the questions on that driver's license was, what is a safe speed, to operate your vehicle, and it's the speed at which you can maintain control of that vehicle. So even though it's not posted, it doesn't mean that you can go 55 miles an hour and maintain control of your vehicle. So, but yes, I think that is the default. If there's not a posting, then it's 55 miles an hour. That's all I have.
We have a motion and a second to approve all three items. That's the easement book, the road book, and the speed limit change. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you very much. Have a Merry Christmas if I don't see you.
Let's do a roll call on that for all three.
Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner James,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Chairman Johnson.
Yes.
Thank y'all.
I've been asked to change the agenda a little bit. We're going to go with the Planning and Engineering Department, Director Doug DeMasi.
Although Greg Brooks means I have to adjust the microphone a little bit. Good evening, everybody. Doug DeMasi, County Planning Director. Have just a brief report for you tonight. Our available lot inventory, you'll see that on your iPads. You'll see that the total available lots as of the end of November of this year is 929, which is up slightly from where it was I'm sorry, 911. It's down slightly, from where it was last year at this time, which was 929. We actually have been a little bit on a little downward slide here as far as the number of available lots since June. We topped out at about 1,130 or so available lots in June, and it's been on a downward slide since that time. So that just gives you just an idea of what we're looking at right now. Things are slowing down, which is not unusual for this time of year. Once we get into the holidays, things tend to slow down a little bit. And I think we saw that too with Ms. Bell's report as well. So I'll be happy to answer any questions on that if anybody has any. If not, my early Christmas present to you all is no public hearings for rezonings this month. So you're welcome.
Thank you.
So that is my report. I do have some remarks about Plan Rutherford here in just a moment. Mr. Chairman, would you like to take a call on my report first before I do that?
Motion and a second to approve the report. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just briefly, I know that you all have probably been seeing things on social media or getting text messages regarding Plan Rutherford. I just wanted to give you a quick update and briefly address just a few things. Just so everybody understands, one of the main purposes of this plan is to better coordinate the growth that we've been seeing in Rutherford County. We've all seen the data of the growth that's coming, the growth that has come at this point. We know it's coming. We don't want to stop the growth. We're just looking for ways to better plan for that growth and encourage it in areas where it's appropriate. that's really where it can be better accommodated. That's really the primary purpose of this plan. As I've said before, the document is in draft format, and you can get to it on planrutherford.org. So I would encourage you all to go out there and take a look at that if you haven't already. So what is being presented and what you're seeing is just that. It's a draft. It's just a set of recommendations. The door has not yet closed on any future recommendations. It has not closed on any input. We're still taking that input. We encourage that. We fully anticipate there's going to be additional comments as we work our way through the process of adopting this. And again, that's just part of what this process is for. So regarding adoption, state law does require that public hearings have to be advertised at least 30 days in advance prior to any meeting that we have specifically on Plan Rutherford. That would be either at the Planning Commission or at the Board of Commissioners. And quite frankly, I don't think it's going to be a situation where you have one meeting at the Planning Commission, then it automatically moves to the County Commission. There's going to be comments that we're going to want to address, things to consider, those kind of things. Again, this is part of that process. So we'll be in discussions to determine the timeline of what those meetings are going to be. At this point, we're probably looking sometime after the new year. We haven't nailed down any dates yet, but I'll be sure to make sure, I will make sure that you all are aware of what those dates will be. And I've stated this on a number of occasions, but I just want to make sure it's clear. Even if the plan is adopted, adoption of the plan does not automatically change any of the zoning of the properties, doesn't change any of our processes or anything like that. The plan is one thing. You have to put those recommendations into practice by making changes to the codes, which is an entirely different process, which had its own public hearings, meetings, and different things. When we adopted our last comp plan, our current comprehensive plan back in 2011, we followed that up with an overhaul of both our zoning ordinance and our subdivision regulations. Both of those updates had several meetings and discussions prior to the adoption. So the plan was adopted in 2011. The zoning took effect at the beginning of 2013, and the subdivision regulations later that day. Now, I don't anticipate a complete overhaul of our zoning regardless of what comes out of the recommendations of Plan Rutherford, but I just wanted to kind of maybe allay some of the concerns that maybe you've heard. And I'll say, as I've said before at the last county commission meeting, or if I've talked to any of you about this, if any of you have questions about this or you know of anybody that has questions, please have them call me. That's what our office is for. I like to think I'm pretty accessible when people try to call me, and I'm pretty good about trying to get back with people if for some reason I'm not around. So I'm happy to talk to anybody about this. This is supposed to be an open dialogue, so if anybody has questions, just have them give me a shout. I'm more than happy to help them. So that I'll finish with my report, Mr. Chairman. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Have any questions?
Thank you all. And I probably won't see most of you, but I hope you all have a happy, Merry Christmas and a happy and safe New Year as well.
Thank you. Merry Christmas. We have Solid Waste and Convenience Center report, and then following that, we'll have Eric Hennessy to present our Sand Hill Convenience Center lease.
Good evening, Commissioners. Bishop Wagner, Solid Waste Director. I gotta move the mic up after Doug leaves. Here is my report for this evening. Rutherford County Landfill accepted 102.86 tons of brush for a revenue of $3,112. We managed 278 tires in November for a revenue of $575. The total November revenue from the landfill scale operations was $3,687. Rutherford County Solid Waste disposed of 3,291.18 tons of waste from all sources in the month of November. 2,408.40 came from the convenience centers, and 574.82 came from the schools. We recycled and diverted 307.96 tons from all sources. That's a residential diversion rate of 9.36 for November. It's about midpoint in the year, so I wanted to update you on, what your solid waste department has been doing for the last 6 months and what the status of some of the plans of things that we've discussed over that. So if you'll bear with me for a few paragraphs, I'm gonna briefly mention some of those things. I'm gonna start with the Haley Road. Rutherford County Solid Waste and Rutherford County Planning and Engineering have been working together to determine the future possibilities for the Rutherford County Recycling Center on Haley Road. The initial proposal by the department involved an addition of a turn-in lane, or a second entrance, or a new entrance, the redirection of traffic flow, and the placement of 2 single-stream compactors on the site. The project would require improvement to the drive surface, light pole placement, and concrete pad construction with underground electrical conduit. We've met with the city of Murfreesboro and showed them the preliminary plans for the site, and they liked what they saw and said that they didn't have any problems, but there were some questions about the overhead lines and the easement with the high voltage TVA lines that are above the center. The property is restricted by both overhead TVA lines in the front and a low-lying drainage area in the rear. TVA does not allow permanent structures to be placed underneath their high voltage lines. Rutherford County Planning and Engineer conducted some preliminary inquiries to determine if the compactor equipment, which is mobile, it's not a permanent structure, would be acceptable. The initial signs did not look favorable for that plan, but I'm not ready to give up on that yet. I think that a more formal proposal and either acceptance or denial would be appropriate. Rutherford County Solid Waste is applying for the Swiffer grant, which was discussed last month, in hopes for paying for this project and increasing our recycling footprint. The grant will be determined next fiscal year, so we've got some time to get the plan together before we go forward with that. Haley Road was the primary location for the electronics, oil-based paint, and fluorescent bulb collection that we do in cooperation with TDEC through a grant. For the past few months, Rutherford County Solid Waste has conducted the collection of these materials at the Leanna Convenience Center, which is at 4303 Sulphur Springs Road in Murfreesboro. This practice has been received very positively by the public. Favorability is driven by the location being more accessible to the citizens that are in Laverne and Smyrna communities and in the northern portion of the county, and the fact that the activities can be conducted while using the county convenience centers for waste disposal and their normal recycling. So it's basically a one-stop shop for the public to come and deal with that instead of having to go to multiple locations. Rutherford County Solid Waste is looking into scaling this practice up to include 2 more collection points, the G Street County Convenience Center and the Rockvale County Convenience Center, or the 2 newer centers. This will disperse the collection areas a little bit, spread them apart throughout the county. I believe that we can achieve this without any new manpower and minimal equipment expense. I anticipate it'll be less than $5,000 for the scales and the point and pay systems that we'll need for both of the new locations. The plan is to collect these materials at the spoke locations and utilize the Rutherford County Recycling Center at Haley Road as the primary hub once the improvements to that site are completed. So we'll have the trailer where we gather all of the equipment. We'll collect the TVs and the bulbs and the oil-based paint and bring it there, and that's where it'll get collected by the state reps or the electronics recycler. Next brings us to the Las Casas Convenience Center. So Rutherford County Solid Waste has met with Middle Tennessee Electric to discuss the movement of a power pole and the placement of an electrical pedestal. Once the pedestal is placed, electrical contractors can come out and run a new 3-phase line to the new pad location. The new pad will be formed and poured, wiring installed, and a 3rd compactor will be placed on the site. Pavement improvements and striping will be installed. The goal is to facilitate the higher volumes of traffic in a safe way as possible and as cost-effective as possible. Right now, we have a safety issue with the queuing that occurs on Las Casas Pike. We need to pull that traffic onto the site and make sure we can keep folks flowing through that center. We've got plenty of land to do it there, and this is a relatively inexpensive way to do this, effectively make a center able to absorb this extra volume. Rutherford County Solid Waste is in the process of collecting quotes for service, with the exception of the payment portion of the project, which will have to be bid out due to the costs. Each step, electrical, concrete, and grading, can either be done in-house or by subcontracted by Rutherford County Solid Waste. The overall cost for all these activities will be underneath the threshold requirement for a full bid. I anticipate the project will be conducted in early to mid-April. Rutherford County Solid Waste does not forecast the necessity for a complete closure of the center during any phase of construction to the site at this time. So I believe we can complete the renovations and upgrade by routing traffic to one side of the center while we're fixing things up, getting the concrete pad poured and setting the compactor up. We already own the compactor. We'll just be utilizing one of the ones that we've moved out of the Smyrna location when we move to the G Street location. And the final item here for update is the Class 3 landfill. Rutherford County Solid Waste is in the process of drafting an RFP for the soils needed to complete the post-closure and compliance activities for the Rutherford County Class 3 landfill. Rutherford County Solid Waste has budgeted funds for this activity. They're in the fiscal year budget now. TDEC requires that the completion of the project prior to July 2025, and provided we can find source suitable materials, this goal is attainable. Activities include exposing and moving waste materials into their permitted locations, covering exposed waste with 2 material types that will equal a total of 30 inches of cover over the waste, and stabilization of the slopes with seed and straw. Once completed, this landfill will be released into post-closure status, and this reduces our annual permitting costs and eases a lot of the necessity for regulatory activities. I've got some pictures coming up next, so if you have any questions on the stuff that I discussed, I'm happy to entertain those.
On the post-closure, there's not soil on that farm somewhere you could use for this cover?
There is some soil. Some of it is suitable, some of it isn't. We've actually found some during the construction project that we'll be able to use that will minimize the calculated needed soil. When we put the money in for the budget year this year, I anticipated no soil imported, so I expect that we will spend far less than what's budgeted in there for the soil should we need, well, when we need to import it. There are 2 types of soil. It's in layman's term, a nice clay, red clay soil is the first 18 inches, and then there's 12 inches of vegetative topsoil that goes in the top to take the straw and seed.
Okay, thank you.
Questions?
So it's been a while since I've done this here, so I thought I'd bring you some photographs of what's happening out there at 6,000 Landfill Road. Some of you were out there this summer for the employee picnic, and it looks quite a bit different. Here's the site as you're coming in. They've been placing poles, power poles on the site, and they were stringing up the power to add power to the station today. I'm not sure if they've got the connections for the temporary pole that's out there for the construction trailer and that yet, but they've got everything on the ground, and all the conduit is buried for the electric to be carried to the buildings when they're ready. This is the scale house and the office building. The office building is wrapped in Tyvek. They're ready to set do the masonry for the brick on it, but it's been too cold the last couple days for them to be able to do it. They have to be above freezing in order to do that, and then they'll have that bricked up. And then the scale house the pad is graded out, and they're getting ready to start pouring concrete around the scale house in anticipation of the scales. The cranes are out there. They're setting steel on the pad, and as you can see, those are the walls that are poured. I believe they're 30 inches thick. The steel that holds the building structure, or the shell of the building, is on the outside of those walls. Those walls are what the equipment will push up against. The floor, the tipping floor of that, is 2 feet thick. There is more rebar in that structure than I've seen in anything that I've ever been around. It is a solid building. Another view of it, that's the looking at it to the northeast, that's the loading pits, and as you can see, the steel's on the outside of that. On those pits, the wall will come. There's no necessity for pushing on that outside wall, so the steel wall will come all the way down, and they're working their way around the building with the cranes. And you can kind of see they've poured the curb. the majority of the curb is poured around the outside of the structure, and then the next thing, around the outside of the facility, and the next thing they'll do is they'll come in and pour the concrete in between the two curbs. It's a nice way to keep everything on grade when they go to pour that, and they've been having some really good weather for pouring that concrete up until the last couple days when it's gotten so cold. Any questions about that? If you haven't been out there for a while and you're just wandering around going out to see Commissioner Piercy, swing in by and check it out. You'd be surprised at the progress that they've made. I'm surprised, and I'm there every day. So.
What kind of time frame are we looking at now?
I think we're still on schedule for mid-March. Does that sound correct for the at least for the structure and the site work stuff that's on there? I haven't heard back with the utility connection what the time frame will be on finishing that, but it's looking like all of those components are going to come together around that time, and then they're still working. The highway department is still working on the road, and I think there was a pre-bid meeting today for the two portions of the road that the highway department isn't going to be doing.
Questions? We have a motion and a second to approve the report. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
The next item is the lease agreement with Sandhill, 300 Sandhill, and Eric Hennessy has been working on that. He'd like to present it to you.
So we have a lease here that's for 1 year for the current location that is owned by the city of Laverne, for us to lease from them. It's for $1. It should be on your SharePoint.
Is 1 year a typical time frame for these kind of leases?
So we are looking for another location to build a convenience center in Laverne. And Laverne needs this property back. And so they're asking us to do a 1 year lease. They will work at the end, but they would like for us to get onto our new convenience center.
Any questions on the lease? Piercy?
Just one. Are we going to construct a complete convenience center on this property?
No, sir. This is the current location that we're already using. So basically, the lease says everything stays the same as it is already.
Okay, that kind of clears things up.
Sorry, I didn't mention.
Thank you.
So at the end of this lease, we're out.
Yes.
That's unless, if we need more time and Laverne approves it, then we accept the city of Laverne in our timeline. Any other questions?
Commissioner P., I will leave this up to you. I don't know if this needs to go to budget or not. It's a $1 lease, but that's up to you.
It was brought up in our committee meeting that there's possibly reason to send it to budget, so I would recommend that we do that.
You know, a dollar's a dollar, so yeah, bring it on. That's not going to hurt. I'm like you. I don't really think it's needed, but just to be on the safe side, let's do it.
Commissioner,
And I know that, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I know that Laverne is also taking this through their council, and we are shooting for maybe a start date. If you notice at the top of the lease, it doesn't have the start date. We're shooting start date. That would be because it would go through the commission on December the 12th. I believe that's the correct date. pass through Laverne. So we should know by December the 12th what the start date will be.
Well, I don't know if this is on our agenda yet, but we can bring it up under other business if this committee so desires to move it on, so, which I'm talking about this Thursday.
The reason I recommended that, Commissioner Irvin had brought up a legal point, and he seemed to think that it did need to go to budget, so cover our bases. Need a motion.
Move to approve.
We have a motion and a second to approve this lease and to move it forward to budget. We'll have a roll call.
Commissioner Kush? Yes. Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Chairman Johnson?
Aye.
Thank y'all.
Just want to do like my colleagues have done and wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. If I don't see you, I'm available if you need me anytime between now and then, and probably during then. Remember to recycle.
Thank you.
One thing I just wanted to mention from a little stint I did out there with some of your employees, as the temperature has changed out there, I'm sure you're doing everything you can think of to do some, but there's always room to ask for more. Especially with these attendants who are standing out there in the cold, in the rain, taking the full brunt of both the public and the elements. Anything we can do, anything we can think of that we can try to do to help at least alleviate some of that from the rain, the cold, etc.
You know, the short answer is pray. We have some options as far as small electric heaters that we can bring out to centers that we can purchase and bring them out there. Sometimes we'll do that upon request. Sometimes we have adequate power usage for those. Sometimes we don't. I think we're kind of in that spot where the infrastructure changes and the things that we're moving forward at some of these older centers it's every year around this time it shows its head that these things need to happen. I tell you that I take every request from an employee seriously when it comes to what their needs are in order to make them as comfortable as possible. And if I'm able to do it, we're able to do it. And if I'm not, I figure out a way that we can be ready to do it next budget year.
Well, from somebody who's been out in the elements, in the rain and the cold, and gotten the cracked knuckles from just the dry skin and the cold from working out there, just if there's anything I can do, holler back at me as well.
I want to thank you, Commissioner James, for coming out. What he did was he came out on a Sunday and he worked a busy center most of the day till we closed. And so you got a chance to experience what they experience and how the public interacts with us, and got some of the direct feedback and kind of found out what it was. And you know, I encourage everybody to come on out and try that. I definitely could use the extra assistance at the centers, but I know that Chairman Johnson has done this before as well. So, but it's refreshing to see that kind of engagement with the community and willingness to look at how we serve. Thank you.
Thank you.
Since he held you up, do we have surveillance cameras at our convenience centers?
No, sir.
I want to have a discussion about that sometime, so, you know.
I know it has been. We have talked with Cody about what does that look like, because, you know, for safety, I do like the idea of doing that. In some of the centers, it's feasible. In some of them, we don't have access to high-speed internet capabilities, so there were some technological issues that we'd have to overcome. But I'm definitely open to discussing that, because I think that safety of the public and of our employees is very important.
Well, that's a safety to the employees issue to me. No, I haven't sat there and helped pack garbage all day, but I talked to a lot of the attendants, and I know the kind of reactions that they have to put up with from the public. And there's times that we need surveillance, and I'm willing to look into that myself. And to me, that's a safety issue.
Thank you.
More questions?
Thank you all.
Thank you. Hey, do we have any other business? I'd like to say I spoke with Commissioner Boyd, Carl Boyd, earlier as I was coming in, and he was hoping to be here tonight, but he was apologizing, but we don't need that apology. But that's just Carl. He's dedicated, but he's planning on being at the commission meeting if he's able. But he did go home Friday, still in a lot of pain. Went for his first doctor's appointment since he's been out of the hospital today. He said everyone there was looking at his leg and said that it really looked good. So that's encouraging. When the wound care doctors and nurses say it looks good, then yeah, you're on the right track. And he's really fighting to get better, and he is. But just keep him in your prayers, because he's still in tremendous pain, and he needs those prayers. So thank you. Our next meeting is January 7th. There's no other business. We'll stand adjourned.